on. What's your emergency?
My son's missing. He's taken out. I want him. I don't know where he is. Can somebody please come help me?
She's gone.
It's been a couple weeks since I made my warning video about May 18th. I wasn't planning on making another, honestly, but I felt led to with what I'm about to show you. First, I wanted to give my gratitude for some brothers and sisters that shared my previous video that directed some folks to my channel. I used to be very active making videos. I was just a tiny channel with about 1,000 subscribers back then, but YT deleted my channel in November 2022 without even a warning. I literally hadn't done anything wrong, but they wiped everything out. Luckily, I had a backup channel over on Rumble, so I just started this YouTube channel again recently and am starting all over again. So some quick shout outs to the other channels that gave me or gave my 40-day warning video previous to this one a push. Garret the News Guy, Brother Brett at God's Land Down Under, Looking Up with Bree, and Rapture Ready for Jesus. Subscribe to them if you don't already. It's taken me a while to get this finally uploaded because I think the boost I got that contributed to my sudden influx of views, likes, and shares may have caused some of my functions to be restricted. I'll leave it at that. I can't comment even on other people's channels, and I'm having to jump through all kinds of hoops. Not to mention, I've made this video twice. The first version was just me on camera speaking, but I already don't like my voice, and I really don't like seeing myself speak. People ask me why I wear a mask in these pictures, and it's mostly because I'm a high-functioning autistic, so I'm pretty wooden. And I don't want my looking like a mannequin that can speak to distract from the message. But I started doing it in March 2020 when they wanted people to wear these, and I decided to wear only ones with crosses on them, and it sort of fit my personality or lack of one. I also want to point out that unlike most other Watchman channels, I'm not necessarily looking for the rapture. I watch signs and confirmations that the tribulation is about to begin, and then I take comfort in knowing that the rapture happens before that. Despite my not giving folks my thoughts on when I think the rapture will be, I was still asked when I think it will be. All I can say is my understanding is that it will occur in spring, meaning not in summer or autumn. I get that understanding from Song of Solomon. I've talked about it before, but here's my clip from a video I did in March where I give my explanation of why I think this is.
The voice of my beloved. Behold, he cometh leaping up on the mountains, skipping up on the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young hart. Behold, he standeth behind our wall. He looketh forth at the windows, showing himself through the lattice. My beloved spake and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grape give a good smell. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away.
To summarize, we see and hear the signs of our beloved, our bridegroom, coming. He's calling to us and showing himself to anyone that will look. And he says, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. A picture of the rapture of the church, specifically the bride. It continues, and here's where the timing of the rapture is given. Winter is past. The rain is over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. Birds are singing. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs. That means they're just budding. And the vines with the tender grape give a good smell. When it is the time for all of these things described to happen, that is when the bridegroom calls his bride to arise and come away. What comes after winter? When is the rain over? When do flowers first appear? When do birds sing? And thinking specifically about Israel, When do fig trees bud and grapevines give off their smells? Springtime. So I don't put God in a box and say definitely anything. He could come today, before or after that window. But looking at the signs and thinking logically, and you can Google this yourself, look up Spring 2024 calendar. The first day of spring is Sunday, March 17th, and the last day is June 22nd. This is why I say I'm not looking at specific dates to be ready. I believe Jesus is coming at his appointed time. We just don't know what that appointed time is, so the date of his arrival appears to us as imminent. Happened to be reading Luke 21, and then I went into Luke 22, and the beginning of Luke 22, let me get my readers. So Luke 21 begins with, being alert at all times, praying that you have the strength and ability to be found worthy or accounted worthy to escape all the things that are described in Luke 21 that are going to take place, and to stand in the presence of the Son of Man, which I take to mean that you're still alive and standing there to greet the bridegroom when he comes for his bride, and so you can escape before the tribulation even begins. So then I start reading into Luke 22, and the very first words are, "Now the festival of unleavened bread, which is called the Passover, was approaching." So does that mean that even though that's further confirmation that the bridegroom is coming before spring is even over and before Passover? Because if Luke 21, if our understanding is correct there, that's the escape, the description of the escape in the actual event itself, and then the very next thing that follows is Passover is approaching, so that tells me because I don't do timelines, it's not my gift, and I don't know how to communicate with other Watchmen because I don't have Discord or people's emails, or I'm only friends on Facebook with a couple. I only recently rejoined Facebook on like March 26th. Anyway, I've been gone for about 4 years. I just give my thoughts in the only way that I know how, and based on what I myself see. We all know about this 1111 stuff. Everyone's been seeing this number, and I sure have for over a year now. Every day we all talk about it on my Telegram channel, and I've made videos about it in the past. But then this week, a brother on my channel, Garret, posts this old video from 2019 by Brother Garret, who does Supernatural by Design, and says, "Check this out." And I do, and I was dumbfounded. It's like all these puzzle pieces came together for me. And if you saw my previous video, that was what I like to call apocalyptically encouraging. If you didn't see it, that's fine, because I'll touch on some of the points in here. But if you have 15 minutes, go and check that one out first, then come back and watch this one, and it might have more impact on you. I'm going to splice in several clips from Jared's video in here during and after which I'll give some commentary, but for the past month, all I've been hearing about is 911, which is a warning, 1111, which after watching Jared's old video, I now understand is also a warning, the Sign of Jonah, that's a warning, Big Ben going crazy and getting stuck on 9 o'clock, then chiming 11 times. I have a video clip of it. You've probably already seen this, but I mean, they're doing it right in our faces. I bet if we were to ask a British official, is this normal for Big Ben to chime 11 times when the clock says 9? They'd probably be all...
These go to 11.
And then on YouTube, the algorithm keeps the old AC/DC song Hell's Bells in my rotation. And I'm like, I didn't even search for this, but that song sampled Big Ben. And with everything I'm seeing being warnings, bear in mind it's also what I do as a watchman, Watchman warn. As I was making the first version of this video, every night I get ready for bed and set the house alarms. On April 29th, April 30th, and May 1st, it was 11:11 p.m. Eastern Time, every time. And house alarms issue warnings. I came to understand by commenters that I made some people uneasy with my warning video, this one here. I received the stereotypical, "you're posting fear porn" comments. Well, in some ways I do, but only to light a fire. I wasn't raised a believer, and I'm no preacher or prophet. In fact, I was a horror author and screenwriter in the 90s and early 2000s before I got saved. So unbeknownst to me at the time, God was building in me a talent to scare people. I just didn't know at the time that he intended for me to scare them to accept Jesus Christ. The Bible says not everyone accepts Christ and repents without some coaxing. In fact, Hebrews 2:14 and 15 reads, "For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver them who, through fear of death, were all their lifetime subject to bondage." In other words, many people will come to Christ because they fear death. And that's where I come in. And then there's a person that decided to systematically go through my Rumble videos, and anytime there was a mention of a date in the title, like if I suggested Jesus was born in September because of the census Joseph and Mary were summoned to attend in their hometown, they copy-pasted, "Wrong again, you're always wrong, quit setting dates, you're making a fool of yourself, but worse, you're making all Christians look like fools." I would have left that comment alone if they'd only done it once, but they were making a point, so I muted them. Mute, by the way, is about the only cool feature that Rumble has over YouTube. It removes anything that they've ever posted on any of my videos as like a batch action, but they remain subscribed and get notified of all my new videos, so all they can do is watch and not say anything.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say!
I don't have the gift of doing these awesome timelines that assemble the months and days written in Scripture like Mike at Repo Man or Dr. Barry do. I don't have dreams or visions, although I have had nuclear visions, but I don't make videos about my dreams, though. We all have different talents given to us, is my point. In my case, if I had to say what I think the talent given to me is, it would be decoding the enemy's plans in predictive programming. I literally can't watch anything that's designed to be entertaining anymore without noticing stuff and assembling puzzle pieces from memory. For example, there's all kinds of things going on, so much in fact nobody can catch it all, and Satan can do no thing without getting God's permission to do it, and after telling his children about it. But that's where 2,000 years of screwing things up comes into play. Satan tells us all about it, but it's buried in entertainment and media that we mindlessly absorb without paying attention. Like the zombie movie I Am Legend, the movie starts off with an interview of a blonde British woman wearing a polka dot blouse by a black female journalist about a jab that cures cancer, which we know, if you watch the movie, about 3.5 years following everybody taking the anti-cancer jab, they're all either dead or turned into something else.
How many people have you treated so far?
Well, we've had 10,009 clinical trials in humans so far.
And how many are cancer-free?
10,009.
So you have actually cured cancer?
Yes, yes. Yes, we have.
Then recently in the real world, there was this interview of a blonde British woman wearing a polka dot blouse by a black female journalist about a new jab that cures cancer. Now think about this. If they're just now rolling this thing out and the tribulation actually starts in 2024, 3.5 years later would be the middle of the tribulation. Just things that make you go,
So what is this as big as it sounds?
I think it potentially is. I mean, it's very early days. So basically, they've discovered that if they use the same technology that they use for COVID, and they use some mRNA, which is a messenger part of DNA, they take your particular cancer, they biopsy it, they take some of the protein on your cancer and they put it back into your cells, and they tell your cells to make that protein. The idea is that your body then makes antibodies against it. It gets the memory cells, the T cells, the ones we heard about lots in COVID. And so then, after you've been treated for your cancer, if any of those cells are still floating around, or if any of them start to come back and multiply, your own immune system will recognise them from that vaccine and kill it. Now, melanoma is a hideous cancer, and if you get recurrence from any cancer, really, but especially from melanoma, you're going to die. You know, it's going to kill you. It's not nice. So to have something that might stop that happening, I think is game-changing. I think it will change the way that we develop many, many cancer treatments. I think there are a couple of things that we're going to need to know as time goes forward. I want to know that the mRNA technology is completely safe. And I think that we need some more long-term data, which will obviously come with these studies, to know that interfering with the DNA and RNA in our cells is actually potentially
But we did it with COVID.
We did, and there are oncologists now calling for it to be stopped, the mRNA technology. So there is still debate around that. And I think it's good. We need debate, but we need open debate where we really can look.
At any rate, I do talk about dates, but that's all. I talk about them. Like right now, I'm talking about watching May 18th because it's 40 days after the Sign of Jonah. But I never say, that's the day. That's when we're rapturing. God told me. We're gone. Quit your job. I guarantee it. Okay, what follows are some clips from the video by Brother Jared, and I'll sprinkle in my thoughts throughout.
Hi, and welcome to Supernatural by Design. Today, we'll be taking an in-depth look at Noah's flood and its deep and prophetic connection to the number 11. And because Jesus stated that it would be exactly like the days of Noah before the second coming, we will uncover the mystery behind the 1111 phenomenon. Because what if I told you that we are living in the end times as detailed in the book of Revelation, and that this connection is tied to Noah's flood and the number 11? Let's start with Moses and the Exodus. Because if we fast forward to the 10th plague that hit Egypt, it is here that we get the first Passover celebration in Israel's history. Because a death angel would pass over the homes that had a red cross on the door, and the red cross was marked in lamb's blood. Well, where did they get the lamb from? Well, Moses was told by God to get a virgin lamb on the 10th day of the first month. And 10 plus 1 equals 11. And it's this idea of adding the day plus the month that we see the connection between 11. Interestingly enough, the lamb is a foreshadow of Christ, from his entry into Jerusalem, represented as the lamb, his death 4 days later as that of the lambs, and the resurrection of Christ, which is represented as a celebration 3 days later. Now let's take a look at some American or Christian dates. 7/4. 1776, the Declaration of Independence. Then 9/11 of 2001 was the attack on the World Trade Center. And lastly, 8/21 of 2017 was the total solar eclipse that went across America. So as you can see, all these dates share a unique connection to the number 11. In Noah's flood, we will see, as in other videos, that the number 11 plays a unique role in major events around the world. And the story of Noah is no different. And to demonstrate this, we will use this timeline, starting at 1, representing the year in which the flood began, which is referenced in the Bible as Noah's first day, first month, and 600th year of his life. Now the flood itself starts in chapter 7, verse 11. And if you notice, the flood first off starts in verse 11, on the date of 2/17. And what makes 217 unique? Well, in ancient times, many calendars were defined as 360 days for one calendar year. And why is this important? Because 217, when you take the first month, you would have 30 days, and the second month would be 17 days. So 30 days plus 17 days equals 47 days, or the 47th day of the year. And 4 plus 7 equals 11. And already we have two instances of the number 11 just within the start of the flood, or a double 11, making it similar to an 1111 with the verse number and the day of the year that it begins. So if we continue from 217, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, covering the whole earth until it reached a max height. Well, this time period is given as 150 days later and lands on 717. And why is this important? Well, if we know the length of time is 150 days, then 150 days minus the 40 days of rain equals 110 days. Our next date is given on 10/1, which is an 11, and is 74 days from the date of 717, and 7 plus 4 equals 11. And here again, we have a double 11 with the date and the duration making an 1111. And our next date given is on 1/1, which is 90 days from 10/1. Our final date given is on 2/27, which is an 11, and 2/27 is 56 days from 1/1, a double 11 again, or an 1111. And 2/27 culminates the end of the flood, and Noah exits the boat. However, to top it off, 217 of 600 to 227 of 601 when Noah exits the ark, and including the end date, is 371 days. And 3 plus 7 plus 1 equals 11. Another interesting fact with regards to the number 11 is that if you count from Adam to Noah's generation, it is 10 generations. And since Noah's sons would be the next generation to repopulate the earth, it would make the sons the 11th generation from Adam. So the number 11 is literally everywhere in the ancient story of Noah's flood, from the dates. In fact, 3 out of the 5 dates listed are 11s, to even the durations between the dates, and ultimately the duration of the entire event. In addition, 1111 continues to appear in the timeline. Is there a reason for that? And what does 1111 mean? Because we know that Noah's flood follows the date pattern that matches the examples from history. But what can be said about 1111? Is it possibly pointing to end-time prophecy? So come, let's unravel the mystery behind 1111. To first connect Noah's flood to end-time prophecy, we must start in Matthew chapter 24, because it is here that we find that connection. When Jesus was asked what the signs would be of his second coming, he stated that it would be exactly like the times of Noah. So what can be said about the days of Noah? Well, how about the number 11, as we just discovered? And in a previous video on Stranger Things, I mentioned that the number 11 represents the physical and spiritual dimensions. And so, if 111 represents a physical and spiritual world, then 2 11s would represent 2 physical and spiritual worlds, to making 1111 mean a transition from one physical and spiritual world to another. For example, this 11 would represent the world before the flood, and this 11 would represent the world after the flood. And why is this important? Because it is mentioned that the current physical and spiritual world in end-time prophecy will burn up, and a new heaven and a new earth will be created, highlighting 1111, representing going from something old to brand new. With that said, I fully believe that right at this very moment, we are going through a transition period, symbolized as 1111. And that the reason why so many people are encountering this phenomenon of seeing 1111 is because 1111 is an alert message that we're in the transition. And from what I've discovered, many people experience this on a regular basis, like on a clock. And I don't think that this is coincidental, because it challenges things in life that they're not random, and suggesting that everything has a reason. And so is this idea pointing to a larger reality behind this one? And if so, are we marching into the end times as predicted in the book of Revelation? I believe that 1111 is God calling people to him to be saved and delivered into this new physical and spiritual world that is to come, which is why this phenomenon happens to believers as well as non-believers, to question or affirm that there is something bigger going on behind the scenes, and that bigger is God. However, interestingly enough, 1111 can be written as 11 plus 11, or 22. And 22 is how many chapters are in the book of Revelation. However, with that said, how do we know when this transition begun? Well, it's my personal opinion that I believe it started on 9/11 of 2001. Because 9/11 is very similar in the details relative to the number 11, just as Noah's flood was. Because when compared both events side by side, you will see that the dates, the duration between dates, even the day that Noah's flood started, are all similar to 9/11. So if we put Noah's flood to the left and 9/11 to the right, the dates for Noah's flood can be summed up as 3 out of 5 dates were dates that added to 11, just like 9/11 itself adds to 11. The duration between the dates of Noah's flood, we have a 110 or 47, 56 days. Whereas 9/11 had a total lunar eclipse 245 days from 9/11, and a total solar eclipse that landed on the summer solstice was 83 days from 9/11. And lastly, the day of the event, remember Noah's flood was on 2/17, which was the 47th day of the year, similar to 9/11 because it was the 254th day of the year. And interesting to note that the commencement of both of these events are tied to the number 11, because in Genesis, the flood starts in verse 11, and on 9/11, Flight 11 was the first plane to attack. So as you can see, there are a lot of similarities between both events relative to the number 11. So today, we have learned that Noah's flood is similar to other world-changing events in history by its repetition in the use of a number 11, as well as Jesus tying his second coming to being exactly like the days of Noah. And lastly, that 9/11 is very similar to Noah's flood with regards to the number 11, pointing to end-time prophecy, and that this transition is captured in the 1111 phenomenon.
I was recently in Kentucky at the Ark encounter on April 8th watching the eclipse, where I bore first-hand witness to the sign of Jonah from within the X of the 2 eclipses that formed both the Alpha and Omega in the Hebrew alphabet, or Aleph Bet. And I'll explain this as I did in the first video so it makes sense. I'm not trying to belabor anything. It's simply important that people get this. Only this time, I'll walk you through some photos of my trip. So this one, because I was concerned about GPS failing on my trip and getting lost, I printed off the directions before I left, and I thought this was funny because my map directions to the Ark encounter warned me of possible flood coming. Jonah was the prophet that was swallowed by a whale, then raised from the dead to crawl out of the whale in front of a town of Ninevite Assyrians who all worshipped the fish god Dagon. So when they witnessed firsthand a dead man rise again and overcome the manifestation of their false god, to preach to them that unless they repented, or 40 days hence Nineveh will be destroyed, they all dropped to their knees and repented. And this was the event upon which 2 later signs are built that will be referenced by Jesus and Moses. This pic is from the Creation Museum near the Ark encounter. In Matthew 12:38-41, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees of the time, but describing a wicked generation that will come at the end of the age of grace, who will be similar to the Ninevites, only way worse. This last generation will be the most wicked the world will ever see, worse than Sodom and Gomorrah, worse than before the flood. And folks, we are living amongst that generation, and we received the sign of Jonah, or the second one rather, on 4:8. The Pharisees, when they were surrounding Jesus and trying to trap him and trip him up into breaking the law with his words, they demanded to see a sign from him. And when he answered, they didn't understand because Jesus talked about the moderate future, about events that hadn't yet happened, his crucifixion and resurrection. He said, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, other than the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation and shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And behold, a greater than Jonah is here." This was the first sign of Jonah. On 4/8, I was at the ark. Thinking about the biblical ark, it was a form of Exodus. Another way to think about it is the ark was an escape, or God's protection, salvation from his judgment. This is a picture. They had a lot of these dioramas at the Creation Museum and at the ark. This is when the ark landed, and they built an altar to God. This is another diorama where the ark literally landed. This was a cool one of the flood. You can see the people, the last ones clinging to the highest rocks as the ark sails away. This was a diorama of the ark loading ramp to the door. I'll play this in its entirety. It's only several seconds, less than a minute. But Noah was the first Watchman evangelist. And this video, their animatronics are on par with Disney World. Here, Noah is depicted how he might have looked if he paid local contractors to help him build the ark. It's just a theory, but it's a pretty compelling one, that Noah didn't build it by himself with just his sons. And he would preach and try to coax workers to come with him.
You need to have a look at that new shipment of flakes and make sure the treatment was done as we told them. By the way, my friend, have you thought about our conversation? God's word is true. Hey, Zophar! Were those pigs checked by Shem before you sold them off? Judgment is coming, my friend. But if you come along, you will be safe in the ark.
All right, here's another video of workers thinking that Noah is crazy. They're saying, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, the sound isn't as good on this one, but it says, "What a fool. Why does he believe the word of God? We've been working on this boat for years and not a drop of water. All this talk about a coming flood is ridiculous." Imagine being called a religious fanatic for 120 years. I often think how bad the mockery must have been in those 7 days Noah and his family were closed up inside the ark before the rain started. I imagine people outside vandalizing or damaging the ark, or carving their names on it, or starting fires around it, all out of sheer hatred and ignorance, thinking themselves wise.
What a fool! Why does he believe in the word of his God? We've been working on this boat for years, and not a drop of water. Talk about it, it's ridiculous. Every day, the same. He's a religious fanatic.
Here's the pic I was looking for. I took this picture of the ark on 4/8 at the maximum eclipse. My lens brought in additional light, but it was very strange looking, and I didn't want to add any filters to this. And those around us were noticing that the morning birds were all singing and chirping when it was actually after 3 p.m. Eastern time. Here's my wife and I. I had people all day long asking me where I got this shirt. Here's people looking up. All right, here's another video that I will share. This is a short video that I took with my phone camera as I held my Eclipse glasses over the lens. You can hear the morning birds that I was talking about singing, if you listen closely. And the clouds kept getting in our way. Oh no!
Everybody's like, oh, there we go. It's coming back.
There it is. I can see it in full. All right, 2 minutes to totality. Wow, look how dark it is. It doesn't look that way. It looks very strange.
Yeah.
All right, so that's as dark as it's going to get?
I guess, but you would think it would, like, you'll start seeing it from the other side.
Here's a single picture that I took through my glasses. I met this guy, also named David, as I handed him a Gospel of John. He handed me one back. This was a funny guy from Australia. He was a believer, but I guess he thought people would think he was crazy. Here's my wife and I looking up, just being silly. This is an interior shot of, I think, the 3rd floor near the flood exhibit. This is a depiction of the dove returning to Noah on the ark holding an olive branch. They had a lot of scenes inside the ark that depicted what life may have been like on the ark, because the Bible doesn't really describe that. But they obviously had to eat. And they were on there for a year, and not one animal died or was killed, so they must have eaten vegetables and fruits. There's a shot of what a kitchen might have looked like. This is an interior picture between floors. With that many animals soiling the place downstairs, it obviously had to be designed to allow airflow to all floors and out through the roof. This is a scene of feeding animals. You can see some of the food containers, like ceramic food containers around the perimeter of the walls. And if you look real close up on top of one of those cages, you can see the legs of either Shem, Ham, or Japheth feeding the animals. This was a painting of the pre-flood world being destroyed as the ark floats away in the distance, its door closed by God to all other people of the world. They had all these incredible dioramas depicting pagan scenes of what the world must have been like this altar of Molech, where townspeople came to offer their infants as burnt sacrifices. It looks like a scene out of Conan the Barbarian at Thulsa-Doom's Serpent Temple, with these priests or acolytes beating drums to cover the screams. More scenes from the pre-flood world depicting sexual immorality run amok. Bloodthirsty crowds that gather to watch sport events, like forcing nearly naked and defenseless elderly women and children to fight gladiators and wild animals. This was a cool picture. This was inside the door of the ark and a photo op spot. I watched this family put their hands toward the cross. It was pretty cool. There's the ark in the morning light of April 8th as we arrived and approached the entrance. And this is my last photo. I went in reverse order. But this was, as we came in through the entrance, the first reveal of the ark after you came through the rainbow door. And the reason I took this pic was because in just a few hours hence, we would be standing inside the X of the 2 eclipses at the ark on 4/8 during the sign of Jonah, which Exodus 4:8 is a confirmation of. And what's in the sky overhead? A giant X. You can't make this stuff up. So what do I mean by saying Exodus 4:8 is a powerful confirmation? Well, let's go to the book of Exodus, and it reads, "And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign." I don't believe in coincidences. Prophetic events described in the Bible are stacking up, and I believe April 8th was the second and final sign of Jonah for a wicked generation. Going back to Exodus 4:8, if you didn't believe the biblical account of Jonah, and you didn't believe the first sign of Jonah, that Jesus is the Messiah, it says you will believe the latter sign. And we received that latter sign on April 8th, 2024. Recently has been suggested by some watchmen, not me, I told you that's not my gift, that you know how all the calendars have been messed up, and then Israel themselves don't even follow their own calendars by starting months based on the sighting of the new moon, that Passover, which most Christians celebrate as Easter or Resurrection Day on or around April 1st, actually occurs this year on May 18th or 19th. 18th in America and 19th in Israel. And I got that from a channel called Gevte, Gevte, who put out a compelling argument for that being Passover rather than Pentecost. And I've heard others referring to a second Passover around the state, but again, I don't know. But let me say this. I did hear from another couple of people that got hung up on that statement that I made in my previous video. I don't know if May 18th or 19th is Passover or Pentecost. I don't know anything about what second Passover is. That's not my point, though, because regardless of what you may want to call May 18th, the fact remains it's 40 days after the sign of Jonah. That's not me setting a date for anything. That's me counting on my fingers between two dates on a calendar. It's simple math. Then in my previous video, I went on to ask rhetorically, will the tribulation begin 40 days after April 8th? And in my example, Passover makes more sense because my next question was, will those covered by the blood of Jesus Christ, the true believers, get passed over by the angel of death on Passover to escape God's judgment coming in the form of the 7-year tribulation starting? You begin to see why I'm excited. If the tribulation is this close, then the rapture is even closer. Remember, the sign of Jonah is a 40-day warning that destruction is coming, and I believe the rapture of the church happens before that. Read Luke 21:36 about those who will escape all tribulation. Yeah, but what if you're wrong, though, and nothing happens? What am I going to be wrong about when I just told you I'm watching and warning on the signs that I see? I don't make up calendars or wear a blindfold and throw a dart at one to pick dates out of the air and say, that's when we fly. Let me turn that around on you and ask, what if you give up? What if nothing happens and you give up and you start beating up your brothers and sisters in Christ that do watch? And then 7 days later, like Noah's family sitting safely in the ark with the door closed before it began to rain, the good man of the house bebops in and sees what you're doing. Or maybe it's 10 days, add 3 to the 7, or allow 10 days post Jesus' resurrection to allow for his ascension to the Father, so we end up flying 50 days after the sign of Jonah, or months from now. My point is, don't get caught being up to the devil's business when Jesus returns. Do you believe now, today, based on the signs and what the Bible teaches, and will you accept Jesus' free gift of salvation and that he paid for our sins, past, present, and future, by dying in our place on the cross? Or let me also ask it this way. Do you believe now, out of fear of death, like it says in Hebrews 2:15, both work, the key is coming to believe in Jesus Christ? Or must you see the end come? Are you doubting Thomas before you will believe and take the hard road? I'm not here to convince you that Jesus is coming. I'm here to warn you that Jesus is coming. And Exodus 4:8 confirms this by saying, or they will believe the voice of the latter sign. Whether that be by accepting Jesus now and accepting his free gift and escaping with me, or whether you get left behind to witness firsthand his judgment come upon an unrepentant world. Either way, you will believe. Don't run out the clock. Don't ignore all the signs. Us in the first watch don't know exactly when God is returning. We just see the signs and we know the season we're in. It could be today. But the moment the rapture happens, the second watch will know precisely what comes next and how long they've got. 1,260 days from when we disappear. But that doesn't mean they get raptured. That ark already sailed. They chose the hard road, and they'll have to die for their faith and not take the mark of the beast when the entire world wants them to. So choose wisely, and I pray that God has mercy on all that hear this warning.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
If you liked this video, please subscribe, like, and share. Like I said, I'm only going to post encouragement, help, and scripture for new or baby Christians on YouTube. I'll mirror these videos to my Rumble channel, of course, but if you're curious to see the uncensored stuff I did that got me banned from YouTube, or see my future uncensored videos, you'll have to subscribe to my Rumble channel, where I don't have to speak in code, and it works a lot like YouTube on some smart TVs and Roku apps. You can even watch it on the big screen. Here's a teaser of what I have posted on Rumble. God bless.
Once every 70.6 years, a comet sweeps through our inner solar system. For a few